Hello friends, welcome to SR Academy.
Welcome to SR Academy. Empowering minds, igniting curiosity. Your gateway to knowledge unleashed. Let's get started.
In this video we are discussing about biomaterials. So biomaterial is a new module in our tissue engineering subject. So that is module number 3 is biomaterials. So what are biomaterials? As a biotechnology students, you should be knowing that what are biomaterials, like it is basics, right? So biomaterials are the materials which should be biocompatible, biodegradable, and even if we use these biomaterials inside our human body or as implants or something else, it should not cause any adverse effects to our cells or tissues or any mechanisms which are happening inside our body. Then we can call them as a biomaterials. Or you can also define biomaterials as the materials which are designed or which are engineered to mimic a function of living tissue, living cell or living organ. Maybe in case of the bone injury, the transplant what they use, okay, like rods, okay, and in case of joints and all, the screws, okay, and bolt or whatever they use. So these all things comes under biomaterials. So usually biomaterials is about the materials which will be using it in the which should be helping us in a way that whenever we need some certain organs or certain parts of our body is failed or maybe damaged due to the accidents or any other reasons, then we should be able to use these materials inside our body, so that it should not cause any effect. So there are ideal characteristics are there for a biomaterial. The biomaterial has to be biocompatible in nature. What do you mean by biocompatible? It should be doing its function alone. It should not cause any other form of problems or issues or any reactions or infections, inflammations to tissues, neighboring tissues or cells. So that is a biocompatibility. Sorry for that. Next we are having the biodegradability. So some of the biomaterials are made up of polymers. They can be biodegradable, so that over a period of time, once its function is done, they should degrade by themselves. And even some of the hard materials also, not only the polymers but also some of the composites also will degrade over a period of time, because they should not be there for lifelong, right? Once the new cells form, new tissue is formed, okay, these particular materials has to degrade by themselves, so that they should provide a room to grow the natural cells or tissues. Okay, so that was about the introduction about the module 3, that is biomaterials, introduction to the biomaterials. So biomaterials, in this topic, we will be discussing about introduction. As I just told you, as I just briefed you, the similar stuff we will be discussing. So the definitions goes like this: biomaterials are used to make devices to replace a part of a function of a body in safe, reliable, economically and also physiologically acceptable manner. So understanding. So here, as I told you, whatever I explained is collectively put into the one sentence. So biomaterials are used to make a devices, or they are the devices, okay, for what purpose? To replace what? A part or a function. Okay, a part in the sense like maybe the leg injury and this thing, joint injury and all, that can be one of the part, like an implant, or a function of the body. Okay, so in safe, that means it should be biocompatible, reliable, that means economically, that means it should be cost effective in nature, and then physiologically acceptable, that is biocompatible, biodegradable, all those things makes this particular sentence as a general approach to the biomaterials. So biomaterials are used to make a devices to replace or a part or a function of a body in safe, reliable, economically, physiologically acceptable manner. So a variety of devices and materials are used in the treatment of the disease or injury. Usually already the most of the materials have been used for many diseases, or to treat the many diseases, or also to the injury. So commonplace examples include suture needles, okay, plates, teeth fillings, etc. Okay. So definitions. So biomaterial is nothing but a synthetic material which is used to make devices to replace part of a living system or a function in intimate contact with living tissue. That means this material, whatever we are going to implant or introduce inside our body, we will have to live with the living tissue. Understanding? So since it is living with a living tissue or a tissue, then it has to it has to be biocompatible. That means it should not cause any harm to the neighboring tissue. Now the science of biomedical material involves in the study of composition and the properties of materials. So usually what is the science of biomedical materials? It's nothing but understanding the concept, how exactly this particular the composition of biomaterial is there, and it has to be, in order to, if I'm using for a bone replacement, the composition of the biomaterial is totally different. If I'm using the if I'm using the biomaterial for the ear replacement, or maybe some soft tissue or cartilage or something, then the composition excuse me, then the composition will be totally different. Okay. So the science of a biomedical materials involves in a study of a composition and the properties of a materials. So properties of a materials in the sense, so here what property I am looking for. For example, in bone replacement, I am looking for the mechanical property, so that it should should have more tensile strength, it should not undergo wear and tear. All those properties I will be looking at for this particular mechanical property of my biomaterial. Understanding? If I am looking for any soft tissue, then I will be looking at for whether how flexible it is, that is the flexibility. And if I am looking for any membranes kind of stuff or any other stuff, then I will be looking at for how much permeable it is. Okay, depending on what material or in what place or what function you are using the biomaterial, that depends on the properties. Those particular properties must be checked. Okay, so the properties of a material, composition and the properties of a materials need to be checked, and the way in which they interact with the environment. That means the way when you introduce these particular materials inside our body, how they are going to behave along with the living cells or tissues, that is also need to be studied. So a science of biomaterials is nothing but it's a science of biomedical materials that involves in the study of all these three things. The major things are composition and properties of the materials, and the third thing is how they behave with the environment. So these three things should be studied before you use the biomaterial or a material for living systems. So development of biomaterials. So there are a lot of developments happening in the happens in the biomaterials in the last few decades. So let's see one by one with the categories into the science and technology, or engineering, biology and physiology, and clinical sciences. So in science and engineering, we will be discussing about the material science. So we need help from the science and engineering to design biomaterials. We need to understand the biology and physiology of our body, and we need to, based on that the biomaterials properties need to be, the surface need to be designed. So biology and physiology also come into picture, and clinical science also plays a very important role. So let's see one by one. So science and engineering, material science, usually we here will be studying about the structure, property relationship of synthetic and biological materials, including metals, ceramics, polymers, composites, and tissues like blood or connecting tissues, etc. So here what is their meaning? I mean, in science and engineering, with the help of material science, we can understand how exactly the structure property relationships are there. That means, for example, if I am talking about any blood vessel formation, okay, or if I am talking about any implants which will be implanted in a way that we know that whole our body is made up of blood vessels. Is in whole our in almost all of our body consists of the blood vessels, right, and connective tissues. So how exactly these materials are going to behave with them, that can be studied, and what structure it has to be there. The living systems, how the biological systems are there, and how the synthetic system are there. Then what is the relationship between them, whether the structure of the particular bone, if I'm example, if I want to take, if the particular bone fracture only we will take, because that is a common example we can take for implantation, because it's been used many years. So if we are talking about the biological material here, you are talking about the synthetic and as well as biological material relationships need to be understood. So that means if the fracture is there in a bone, then I have to measure what are the dimensions of that fracture, and how much material I need, and in what structure I need, and in what property I need. So here structure property relations of synthetic, that is what you are going to synthesize in the laboratory. For that you need a relationship with the biological materials. Okay, so that both we need to combine. So here the materials can be the metals, ceramics, polymers, composites, or tissues. So you can just go through those materials, you identify the material what you want to include based on the 10 properties, whether if you need a high tensile strength, high mechanical property, how to go for the metals and ceramics. If you need anything the flexibility, you have to go for polymers. If you need both the properties where you need the flexibility and as well as mechanical property, you have composites. And also if you are talking about any blood and connective tissues, then you have to go for the biological tissues. So that was about the science and engineering. That's how the development can be done. So the biology and physiology, with the help of biology and physiology, cell and molecular biology, anatomy, animal and human physiology, histopathology, experimental surgery, immunology, all these aspects can be studied, so that which will help in the development of biomaterials, and that must be done before you need to develop a biomaterial. Then comes the clinical sciences, where it is all related to the particular on the human being, specifically the surgeries and other the procedures which are clinically involved. So all the clinical specialties, for example density, I'm extremely sorry. So density, neurosurgery, ophthalmology, that is speaking about the eyes, and then orthopedics, okay, bones, then plastic and reconstructive surgery, that is plastic surgery usually will be done for the cosmetic surgery and all, and then cardiovascular surgery. So cardiovascular surgery is related to the heart. So these are all clinical specialties also need to be studied, and in order to, when you are going to develop a biomaterial, for example in the stent, when we are going to implant or use the stent inside the heart, okay, so for that the biomaterial need to be developed, right? Now that stent is a material, it can be of metal or it can be of ceramic, right, or it can be of composite materials, right? So for that science and technology will study what are the properties which is speaking about the particular stent, and we need those things need to be done with the help of science and technology, that has to be engineered. Then comes the biology and physiology, and what are the biological processes which are involved in the cardiovascular system. So that has to be studied, and that is to be there. And the clinical sciences, again, how exactly the heart is going to behave for respond to this particular the connective tissues or the particular whatever the things you are developing, that is also very important. So that's how for the development of biomaterials you need science and engineering, you need biology and physiology, you need a assistance from the clinical sciences also. So table 1 refers the uses of biomaterials. Table 1 refers the uses of biomaterials. So uses of biomaterials and examples. So here the replacement of the diseased or a damaged part, we are having the example artificial hip joint, kidney and dialysis machine. As of now we are already using it. Then assist in healing, we are having the sutures, bone plates and screws which has been already used, and then improve the function. We are having the pacemaker, and also the intraocular lenses are there to improve the function of the eyes the vision, and also to improve the function of the heart, that is for pumping we are having the pacemaker. And then correct functional abnormalities, that means if any functional abnormalities are there inside our body that need to be corrected, example cardiac pacemaker. Then correct cosmetic problems, we are having the mastectomy, augmentation and chin augmentation. And then aid to diagnosis, we have probes and catheters which will be using for ECG, EEG and all. And then aid to treatment, catheters and drains, again it is used for the for particular treatment. So these are some of the uses of the biomaterials. So biomaterials in the organs, we are having, for example, heart is there for cardiac pacemaker, artificial heart valve, totally artificial heart. These are some of the examples which will be used in the heart. And then oxygenator machine which will be used in lung, eye, contact lenses, intraocular lenses. These are all the examples of biomaterials which is used for eye. And we are artificial stapes, and we are having the cochlear implant for ear, then bone plates and intramedullary rod for bone. Then kidney dialysis machine is there for kidney, and catheter and stent is there for bladder. So these all are some of the examples which are already used. These biomaterials are already used in different organs. Okay, this is based on the use of the biomaterials with the example. This table explains about different organs and what are the biomaterials can be used in that. Then we are having the classification, that is based on the polymers, metals and ceramics, the common classes of the materials for which is used in biomedical materials. Now these three classes are used singly, that means either I can use just a polymer. If I want, I can combine both the polymers and the metals, because wherever I need both mechanical property and flexibility, I can use both of them, so that both the property can be engaged together. So that's how the biomaterials works, and that was about the introduction. The next topic, we are having the properties of the biomaterial that we will discuss in the next class.